We're two self-care experts,
a massage therapist,
and a licensed professional counselor,
husband and wife and parents of 3,
business owners and working professionals
who have intimate experience with stress both professionally and personally.
Our podcast aims to teach the everyday professional
how to live through the stresses in life
while learning to be their best in life. What up, guys?
What's upper?
So welcome to Living the Stress Life podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Story.
And I'm your host, Lamar Story. Welcome.
And so tonight we are talking about developing a marriage mindset. So I'm saying tonight, but every week we record our podcast, and when we record our podcast, we also go live. So if you hear us pausing during the recording, the live recording, I'm over here actually working with my other equipment for the podcast. But let's do a check-in. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So how was your day?
My day was actually pretty busy. I had a full schedule today. A lot of massages back to back. And at the end of the day, I was tired. What I was looking forward to was getting out in the wind, to a little wind therapy. That's what us motorcyclists call it.
You're a motorcyclist.
I'm a motorcyclist now. But some wind therapy. So even though it was 30-some degrees when I left out this morning, it felt good. And on my way home, all I could think about was ending these massages, getting on my bike for some more wind therapy.
Yeah, so him and his bicycle is a whole conversation and podcast.
That's my new girlfriend.
He'll be down in the garage talking to his girlfriend, letting her know what the weather look like and when they're gonna be able to hang out again. That's
my honeybee.
Anywho,
like my daddy used to call the young ladies back in the day, honeybees. That's my honeybee.
As far as my week, I am in high anticipation of what this inauguration is going to look like tomorrow. So we have the first Black and woman VP to be sworn in tomorrow. We got President-elect Biden, who will be sworn in as the president tomorrow.
And then we got a whole bunch of idiots.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people who are not feeling the new president-elect and his VP-elect. And so I'm just kind of anxious to see how this process is going to go tomorrow. And honestly, I'm interested to see how things will change politically, what kind of policies and things will go in place, how our economy will be impacted, how our relationships with other countries will be impacted, and just how our overall everyday life will be impacted. Because with every presidency or every change in political elected figures, it seems to always be some type of cultural shift or,
what I'm most
environmental shift.
Looking forward to is the mindset of America. How will the mindset of America change? Because right now, with 45 in office, the mindset of America is just like people just really want to just like skip these last 4 years. Like mentally skip these last 4 years. I hate my children even had to experience this presidency. And the mindset of America right now has been a lot of hatred, a lot of bigotry, a lot of lying. I'm ready for the mindset of America to change in a positive direction and to actually have someone in office that looks and acts like a president.
I think what you said is a key word, though, change. I think that the mindset didn't really change. I think it just unearthed a lot of things that were undercover. People felt the freedom to really expose how they feel. Mm-hmm. I also believe that, this presidency has really encouraged some toxic behavior. So Anyway, change is good most of the time. I think the last 4 years has been a roller coaster. I'm looking forward to having leaders in the White House that actually act like adults and have class. I don't know if I have any expectations that these politicians, these newly elected politicians, will actually follow through with the promises they've made when they were running and campaigning. However, I do feel that at least we will get some class back into the White House.
Yes.
So anyway, that's our check-in, but we're going to get into this week's topic, which is developing a marriage mindset. You ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so I am going to set up so we can actually get into the topic today, because that's my business, as Tabitha Brown said.
Because it's your business.
All right, I'm about to start recording.
All right.
So, developing a marriage mindset.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that's what we're about to talk about.
Tell me what it is then, Timmy. Stop playing with the people.
Okay, so I think that it's really important to kind of just discuss right now just relationships. I think I hear so many single people say how hard it is to find a worthy suitor, or a person that's compatible and worthy of marriage. And so I can't really speak from a man's perspective. So I'm glad I got my main man here. But I think I would like to have a really interesting conversation, and hopefully a conversation that warrants a lot of audience feedback about preparing yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually for entering into a union with another person. So many times when people enter into marriage, I wonder how many of those people actually um, really reflect or assess the words that they say, the vows that they take. I mean, I know many of us hear it so often, attending weddings or watching weddings on TV. We hear about those vows, but do they really resonate with people personally when they enter into marriage? And do they recognize that the vows are written because marriage is not something easy? It is a commitment, but it's also something you have to commit to daily. And so we just thought it would be interesting to have this conversation. We've been married for 15 years, and we've been together for about 19 years. And so our relationship has looked different over this, our history of being together. I won't say any part of our marriage has looked the exact same, because people evolve, people mature, hopefully. Um, and so marriage is just a ever changing process.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about what are your thoughts about what it means to develop a marriage mindset?
Developing a marriage mindset starts before marriage, right?
Yeah.
So it's about a lot of self work. And a lot of times we're not knowledgeable that we need to do the self work before we get married, because we're just living life. You're just, you're dating different people. You're just living life. You're not really working on yourself. I don't know many people that have just like went to counseling and therapy and all this stuff for themselves before they got married, to work on themselves with intention and preparing themselves for marriage, dealing with old wounds, or from your past relationships, or even just from your upbringing. Because most of the time you're so young, you don't realize you even have these wounds. It's not until you get into a serious relationship that things start popping up. And then you're trying to figure out where this come from. If you're trying to figure out where it's come from. So it takes a mature person to get into a marriage and make it work. We were just reading a statistic during this past year. There's only been 39% of divorce, right? The
Yeah.
divorce rate has dropped
Has actually dropped.
for the first time in 50 years
Yeah.
to 39%. On the other hand, this is how statistics work. There's less people getting married. So out of 1,000 people, I think this past year only like 33
33
people, 33 people out of 1,000 are
for
getting
every
married.
1,000. Yeah.
And back in the 70s, it was like 98 people out of 1,000 that was getting married. So um, there's something going on. Like even during the pandemic, at first it was like, well, more people are probably getting divorced because they're tired, but they actually found out that people were staying together. Like even in our relationship got better during the pandemic because you eliminated some of the stressors, which was all the on the go stuff, job, taking kids to practice, doing this, doing that. There was a lot of stressors that got eliminated during the pandemic, which caused you to focus on your family.
Well, I also think it was a different stressor that the stressor that kind of came during the pandemic is a stressor that could push people together. Like when you think about the fact that people are dying, they're dying in hospitals by themselves when they have COVID. They're not able to have loved ones. I think what it did is it caused people to not have to focus on things outside the household. And your focus primarily became, how do I take care of the people in this house? How do I keep them safe? And how do we prioritize being able to stay above water? And so I think where your focus might have been shifted on renting companies, and I'm sure there were some people who did have those stressors. If you think about business owners and how, it was really different for the two of us initially, because I'm an employee. Even though we co-own the business, I don't work in the business. I kind of do things that I can do on my own time and outside of work. And you work in and day out. That's your main source of income, and you're the one who brings in the most money from this business. And so I do think there was different type of stressors, but the the focus became family.
Yeah.
The focus became you know taking care of your legacy, your inheritance, and what what belongs to you, versus focusing on all this other stuff that's just distractions. So let's get into marriage mindset. I think Lamar and I both kind of did our own reflecting on what we think you should focus on when you're preparing yourself or trying to develop yourself to be a partner or a spouse. And so for me, I think my list is a little bit different from his list. I will say, I think, I kind of, always do what I do and research and see what other people are saying. And I think I just took what I thought personally and what I read, just searching, other clinicians' advice. I merged those together. And for me, I think it's important to work on yourself, like Lamar said, do a lot of self work, right? Work on your own personality, work on developing relation skills and interpersonal skills, but also I think it's important to really focus on what are your goals for your life and your marriage, and where are you trying to get to in life, and then having conversations that are centered around what you see for your future, what you see for your future kids, what do you see for yourself, in retirement, what do you see for your finances? Those are things that really should be discussed. So developing a marriage mindset is all about, you know who am I, what issues or baggage do I have that I need to heal from or work through, what kind of skills do I need to actually be in a relationship with somebody, and a relationship that is sustainable, that can be maintained over time, because no relationship is perfect and no relationship is going to be happy all the time. And then, is this person truly compatible with me? Does their outlook for their future and for their family, does it align with what I see for myself? Kind of what do you think is important for a man when he's preparing for marriage? What kind of things should he be evaluating?
Well, I think there's some do's and don'ts, right? So you have to first realize that you have an accountability partner. That means that as a single guy, sometimes you can be like, you know what? This weekend, I'm just going to up and go to Atlanta with the fellas and we're going to kick it.
Yeah.
But when you married, and sometimes people be like, "Oh, you got to get permission from your wife." You got to get permission from your wife, bro. So just like, you just gonna be like, "Hey, oh, by the way, I'm going to Atlanta this weekend." She gonna be looking at you crazy, like, "What?
Yeah.
What you mean? You weren't gonna tell me?" Or it's just you don't, So having that respect to say, "Look," especially if it's pre-planned. If it's pre-planned, hey, me and the fellas think about going to Atlanta this weekend. Do you mind if I split? Do you mind if I go with? You
Mm-hmm.
know, just giving that respect to your spouse, right? And I just say, hey, man, we just got a last minute trip. We're going to Atlanta. It's Friday. I'll be back Sunday.
Yeah.
That's kind of disrespectful. So you had to first realize that, hey, you do have an accountability partner now. You got somebody that's going to hold you accountable, and especially if there are kids involved and stuff like that. You just have to be mindful of the other person. When you're single, of course, you don't have to do all that stuff. You just go on a whim. Your friends and family come down for the weekend, and you gone. You know what I'm saying? But when you're in a relationship, you got to think about the other person.
So
Another thing is, as a man, especially as a man, I think this is when it goes to women too, especially women, because I think men expect to pay the bill when it comes to a woman.
mm-hmm.
So when it comes to money situations, we expect to take care of everything, right? And I
Why?
think you said why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I think that's just gender roles,
Traditional gender.
traditional gender roles, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like incorporated into being a man. It's almost like if you're not a man, if you can't take her out to eat and wine and dine her or pay the bills at the house.
Which is really interesting because that you say that, because I think you have a lot of women today who are really independent, who can come into relationships making a lot of money. They don't really need financial support from a man. But I do think that,
But they do though.
well, hold on. Let me finish making my point. I think they don't need the financial support from a man, but they have an expectation that the man is going to come in and provide financial support. And I also think really independent women sometimes send mixed messages, because they say things like, I don't need a man to take care of me, I got my own money and all this kind of stuff. But if a man came in and was just like, okay, well, we splitting the bills 50-50, it'd be like, oh, we doing what now? Since so we going Dutch, you know what I'm
Or
saying?
since you make the most money, you need to pay most of the bills.
And I think a lot of women who want to be independent and who make statements like, I got my own, I can take care of my own, would be seriously offended from a man who comes in and says, you make most of the money, you carry most of the weight. And there may be some women who are whole and healthy and who don't have any issues with that. But you find that a lot of women, even if they got their own, their money is their money and your money is our money, right? And so,
That's how I feel.
yeah. You
I don't
see,
see a check.
you see how shady and petty he is.
I just
Anyway,
want $50 to eat. Can I get $50 for the week? I want to lounge with the kids. I
anyway,
just want to get my Chick-fil-A. As long as I get my Chick-fil-A, we all right.
I don't have time for your shade and your pettiness. What I was going to say is, I think that's something that I felt like is a focus for women, is to figure out what it is that you're really asking for. What do you really want? Because I hear you say all the time that you're confused by
But
different
women
things.
don't know what they want.
You just make general statements.
They
Like,
don't.
okay, so
Women do not know what they
so
want.
men have a clear understanding of what they want, because
Yes.
your mind changes like the wind.
Nah, we do. Now, if y'all gonna give it to us or not, that's another thing.
Baby,
We have an idea of exactly what we want.
the lies this dude is
Oh,
telling.
we do know what we want.
Okay.
But women, they don't know what they want. First, they want to sit at home, not do nothing, not paying the bills, and have the man take care of them. Then they want to be independent. Oh, I want to own a business. I want to do this and this and this and that. Then they tired. I'm tired. Well, I got to be out here. I got to cook, clean, and go out here and work. I'm like, girl, what do you want? I don't think women actually believe what they want, and I'm gonna stick to that.
No,
And I think it's a phase. It's an up and down curve, and I think it's just women are easily influenced by their friends and outside influences to determine what they want. They don't want to fit into gender roles. No, I don't want to stay at home and take care of the kids and cook and take care of the family because for some reason, all of a sudden, that's not worthy enough. Like back in the day, that was cherished. If you could find a woman that can cook and that can raise good children and can teach the children, oh my God, you had a gold mine.
I don't think
Nowadays,
that's a good example.
nowadays, because of the feminist movement, we get into a whole different
I'm
thing.
about to say you about to start some mess because
Let's start some mess.
Hold on, because back in the day, even though those were cherished qualities, women also didn't really have a lot of say so. So you also had men who had a whole nother family that lived down the street that the wife was aware of but couldn't do nothing about because women were not given the same opportunities in the workplace as men. So we ain't gonna even go there. Let's not go there.
Marcus, feel me. Marcus, feel me.
We're gonna get back to this marriage mindset. I do think that as women, we have to identify what it is that we want. But I also think that to your point about women not knowing what they want, I think that women struggle with being true to themselves while also trying to be true to their family, true to their kids and available to their kids and serving their family and making time for their spouses while not putting themselves on the back burner. And I think that we go back and forth about that because we'll commit to it and recognize that that is not giving us satisfaction or that our needs are not being met or our dreams are not being accomplished.
So I'm gonna say this. I'm massage thousands of women, over 10,000.
So he think that make him a woman whisperer, y'all.
What's up, Stephanie? That's all I say. Don't be on her side.
Yes.
So I've massaged thousands of women. There has been one particular woman that came in and she broke it down. She said, I was like, I always ask, well, what do you do for a living? She's like, I stay at home. I take care of the kids. I cook. I clean. My husband take care of everything, and I love it. Mm-hmm. And she was so happy. I was like, whoa, out of these thousands of women, I heard this one woman say how happy she was. And then I have a ton of other stories that people are just like overly stressed out, overly doing things. It's too much stress. Both parents working and doing this and all that. But she was like, she was settled into that role. She was like, my husband, he dropped her off at the spa, get a massage. He came back and picked her up, met her, shook her hand. And I almost hugged the man. I was like, man, I love y'all.
But that is an important piece. And I think that women could appreciate staying at home if there was appreciation for what they do. And I think oftentimes husbands don't really recognize how much it takes out of you to be an at-home mom. First of all, you're cut off from a lot of adult interaction. When your primary job is to just be at home, take care of kids, and take care of the family, unless your husband is financially stable, unless he values, even if he's not making a lot of money, he prioritizes you being able to take care of yourself and get a break from those responsibilities, doing things like making sure that there are days you don't have to cook, or making sure that there are times where you're able to just get out and focus on yourself. Unless those things are prioritized, you don't enjoy it. I've been an at-home mom, and there were times that I enjoyed being there for my kids. I don't think I realized how important it was to our children until I stopped doing stuff like showing up at every thank you, pal. You better be my amen corner.
Go and clap for us, Stephanie, because you're gonna be the only one.
That's a lie. But I don't think I realized how much it meant to my family until I stopped doing those things. But if you have a spouse who feels like I'm doing all this stuff, I'm having to, carry all the bills, and you want to buy this or you want to go here, I can't do both if I'm the only one bringing in money. Like, you can't have those type of complaints. And so, to get us back on topic of being in a marriage mindset, you have to recognize when you go into a relationship to what is it that you want, right? And then what
and
is it
don't
going
look
to
for
take?
marriage to make you happy. And
He
this is something
he
else to
been
defer.
itching. He been itching to say that, y'all, because I told him I disagree with that statement. But go ahead and say your little funky statement.
Look, don't look for marriage to make you happy. If you're an unhappy person before you get married, and then you was like, oh, I found this great person, and she's gonna make me happy, and it starts out beautiful, and then next thing you know, y'all get married, and all of this stuff every day, and then
What is the clapping?
And then that's gonna dwindle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not happy before you get married, you're gonna revert right back into that unhappy person. And matter of fact, you might make your spouse just as unhappy. You need to be happy first with who you are, right? Y'all need to be settled into who you are first. And then, as two individual happy people, come together and have a happy marriage. But don't expect marriage to make you happy.
Well,
Can I get an amen?
I think it's also
That's
important.
good teaching.
It's also important for people to recognize that happiness is a choice. Just like love is a choice. A lot of times we go off the way we feel. We fall in love. We feel in love. Marcus is being your amen.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times we focus on how we feel when we enter a relationship. This person, they make me feel this way, right? But you can feel like you don't love someone. And so you have to recognize that love and happiness is a choice. It is something that you're actively doing, because at the end of the day, there are going to be things that occur in your relationship where you don't feel like you love that person, or you are challenged like, do I even like you? You know what I'm saying? But I think that if you put yourself in this place where you recognize this relationship is going to take work, it's going to go up and down, there are going to be some hills and some valleys, I think that you can have a successful marriage. One of the things that I really want to focus on is, what type of skills do you need to bring into a relationship? A lot of us don't really, for one, assess qualities, because I talked about that, like really assessing, are you patient, are you forgiving, do you know how to express gratitude? Like, those are some real qualities that you need to assess. If you know that you're impatient, like
So that's like emotional intelligence.
I mean,
Yeah, so
you have to
what
have some level of
emotional
emotional intelligence, or
yeah.
you need a good therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Or some good friends that just be like, you impatient and ain't no man gonna deal with that, or you impatient and ain't no woman gonna put up with that. Assessing those qualities, but then moving along to those skills, like how do you communicate? Like, me and Lamar's communication styles are not compatible. Like, we are like water and oil sometimes.
So this is how it typically works. Tiffany is loud, and she can't help it, and dramatic and all this stuff. And I'm more calm and laid back. So when we're having a discussion or argument,
or just discussion,
and she called discussion, it sounds like an argument on my side. But but when we're having discussions, I do a lot of active listening. Even she's the mental health counselor, but I feel like I act like more of the counselor.
Don't be trying to be shady, because
I'm just saying, because I sit back, I listen, I try to, and at first, I couldn't take my time with a response, because women,
Stephanie says heated fellowship.
Heated fellowship, all right.
Yes.
Because I really couldn't take my time with a response, because if I think too long, my wife would be like, well, what you think? I'm like, nigga. need to process everything you just said. Like she'll talk for 10 minutes and be like, "What'd you think about that?" I'll be like, "What part?" You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So it takes some skills. You do have to have, like she was saying, you have to have some skills. Active listening is a skill. Actually having a conversation is a skill set. And when you want to learn how to break down the argument, this is one tip that I'm gonna give to you. When you're having a conversation with your wife or heated fellowship, as Stephanie say, take out a notepad, write down notes about whatever she's saying.
Don't
See, that's the difference.
I'm just being
but the
funny.
thing, as fellas, listen to me. Take down a notepad because she gonna talk for 20 minutes and ask you what you think, and you need to know every topic that she talked about. So get you a notepad and be like, okay, boom, give me 30 minutes. And I come back and let you know what I think about everything you just said.
Well, I also think it's about recognizing how you engage when you have been emotionally triggered. And I've made this comment and said this multiple times. For me, it's really easy for me to be a therapist in a room when I have no emotional connection or involvement in what my clients are talking about. So I can be an active listener because it's not emotionally triggering for me, or I'm not invested in what they're saying emotionally. I don't have a dog in the fight. My job as a therapist is to hear them out and help guide them to a resolution. It's not to give advice. It's really to listen to them, reframe what they're saying back to them so they can hear their own thoughts. Okay, and I'm gonna try to work on that. The difference is when I'm talking to Lamar, it's just the way we communicate is very, very different. And so what I've learned, one of my self-revelations, throughout the time we've been married, is that when I'm emotionally triggered and I feel frustrated, I don't think. That is a normal physiological response to being emotionally triggered. I mean, if you do research
That's your first time admitting that.
No, that's not. You
yes,
just don't.
It is.
See, you don't listen.
You said you don't think.
Listen.
You just said when you emotionally.
I didn't say I don't. I have a hard time thinking. Yes. Oh Lord, he's so petty.
I'm glad this recorded.
Anyway,
we can always go back to this moment.
But
I've 32 minutes.
I've said this multiple times. When I'm emotionally triggered, if I am talking to someone that I'm emotionally invested in, then I have a hard time thinking. So I do listen, but the other part about it is it takes me a little longer to process. Now, what Lamar is not saying is that I can go away from a conversation and come back like a day or two later and have a different type of conversation. If it's something that he's bringing to me the first time and I'm emotionally triggered, my response then may be very different if I have 2 days. But it is literally like a trauma response. I'm triggered, and then my fight or flight responses go into effect. And his is different. I'm more of a fight, and he's more of a flight person. That is really how we work in terms of communication. Like,
what you mean by that?
Like, if you've been emotionally triggered, you withdraw. You don't like conflict. You know what I'm saying? So you immediately kind of shut down and just sit back.
Do
Yeah. That's your natural response. Whereas for me, when I'm emotionally triggered, I'm a fighter. So I automatically or naturally go into attack mode. It's two different types of survival skills. Both of them are our survival skills, but our responses to being emotionally triggered is very different. And so our responses causes each other anxiety. I don't want to get too much off the topic, but
she shut me down. Y'all see that? She knew I'm about to respond.
If you want to respond, that's fine. But for understanding your communication style, understanding your own emotional baggage.
I'll take your flight.
He's so petty. It's really, really important. Also, understanding boundaries is very important. And I won't even say Thank you, pal. Thank you. I won't even say that I won't talk about us specifically when it comes to boundaries, but I'll give a good example of understanding the importance of boundary. Sometime last year, my husband and my son had gotten into a disagreement, and my son was walking off. He was extremely heated. Lamar was extremely heated, and my son was walking off, and Lamar kept telling him to come back. Um, and he was not listening. I mean, they were like basically ready to fight. And so
Sometimes you gotta be that age.
anyway, it really was about to lead to like a physical altercation. And my son was really emotionally distraught, and Lamar was not calming down. And one of the things I said to him when um when I was able to pull him aside and separate him was he communicated several times, just give him a minute. Like just leave him alone. He may not have done it in the most appropriate way, but both of you guys were here, right? I'm trying to see that. Both of you guys were here.
Who said give me a minute?
Jaden, he just kept saying, he kept saying, leave him alone.
Do you remember what happened?
I remember clearly what happened. I'm giving the
Okay,
edited
go ahead,
version.
go ahead.
So in essence, what I said to him was, because he was heightened, this is the way he communicated, but what he was asking for in that moment was space. And because he's your child, you felt like you're the adult, and because he didn't say it in a respectful way, he did not get space. But honestly, when he was given the space, he came back and apologized on his own, because my husband thought I told him to apologize for his behavior and the things that he said. But when he was given the space and the time to really process what happened, he came back and admitted to his actions and apologized on his own.
Mm-hmm.
You trying your best to recall.
No, I recall every moment. We recording.
So for me, I think it's important to really point out.
Text me what you want.
First of all, we recording the podcast, so I don't feel like editing that out. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So anyway,
bottom line is, I asked the boy to give me his phone. He didn't.
That we wouldn't even get into all
he
that.
bumped my shoulder. Now, as a man, this
is not on marriage mindset.
Listen, as a man, because she didn't tell you the full story.
On purpose.
As a man, anybody come by you and bump your shoulder when it's already hostile grounds, that's a big no-no. And then for your child to bump your shoulder, walk past you like you a punk. Anyway, what's the next one?
We were talking about boundaries.
Okay,
do you think that's important? Because I think when early in our marriage, that was something that you and I struggled with. I felt like you struggled with respecting the fact that it took much longer for me to de-escalate. Or Stephen said that means it's time to throw hands when they bump your shoulder. But don't be encouraging that. Don't be encouraging that.
See, that's my pal.
But I feel like early in our relationship, that was something we had to adjust. Like, it took me a much longer time to get over things. And then Lamar, like 5 minutes after argument, want to hug and kiss and be like, I'm sorry. And I just be like, look, get out my space, And so,
emotional.
Yeah, I may have been, but I think it's taken over the years. That cool down time for me has gotten much better. But I think it's also about us learning to respect each other's boundaries, which sometimes I think we still struggle with. I know I do still struggle.
And that goes right into being emotionally mature. So you have to make sure that you're emotionally mature before you get into a marriage, right? So what I mean by that is, if you don't know how to handle anger, if you don't know how to handle someone having a difference of opinion than yourself, if you don't know how to handle situations like that before you get into a marriage, that means you have some work to do, right? There's some work to do. Like my wife and I watched the show last night. I forget the name of the show, but it was on Netflix. We was watching the show last night, and the guy, his girlfriend, was in Paris.
Oh,
and she wanted to go
something bling.
Yeah, she wanted to go shopping with her friend that she was with, 2 females. Now, as a man, if we in Paris and they like we're going shopping, I don't want to go anyway. But dude was asleep, so they went shopping.
Some men are shoppers. Though.
And I mean, he cussing her out all over the phone and all this stuff, and I was like, that's emotional immaturity.
Yeah.
Right? When there's trust in a relationship, you don't have to go through stuff like that.
There's also crazy.
Yeah, and I think he was a little crazy. You don't have to go through stuff like that. So anybody listening to this, when you're in a situation when somebody you're confused, just like she was. She feels like she's in love. She was like, but this happens on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, he was just fly off the handle, crazy, calling her names, and then come back and apologize. What we call that in counseling is a pit bull. He has a pit bull mentality. You know what I'm saying? They might cuddle all up next to you and bite you in the other hand. You know what I'm saying? When you meeting someone like that,
that's called emotionally abusive.
Emotionally abusive, but you know they describe them as having that pit bull mentality,
yeah.
Right? So when you're involved with somebody like that before marriage, please don't take it to the next level until those issues are resolved
completely.
Or get counseling or just leave.
And I can't even say completely. And let me even define what I mean by crazy, because I don't want people to think just if you have some emotional instability or mental instability that you're crazy. Crazy is when you really get into this place where you're in crazed. You know what I'm saying? Like you have lost all awareness of your affect, all awareness of how you're communicating. Like you are in a zone, in a trance, and that's how that guy was. I mean, and you could see after the fact that he knows, that he's aware that he goes completely over the edge. But that's a really important that you're emotionally mature, because if you go into a relationship and you haven't dealt with your baggage, if you truly love somebody, what ends up happening is you continue to injure that person. You continue to hurt them. And there's one thing that I some advice I was given earlier on after I had been married a little bit that I try to be mindful of is never saying anything that hits below the belt that you can't take back. Because I think men are a little different from women. If I, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that when we as women say things out of anger, even if you forgive us for it, you never truly recover from that. Whereas women, I feel like it's easier for us to move forward. You know what I'm saying? Like if we even think about infidelity, I know every case is unique, but just if we had to generalize, I think in more instances, you have women who will forgive a man and move forward in a marriage when they've been unfaithful. Whereas a man, and when a woman has been unfaithful to them, that
it's
pretty much a relationship, a deal breaker.
Nobody got time
permanently ends a relationship. And so what I've learned early in marriage, and what a woman an older woman who had been married for some time, who was,
I think let me take that back. So I was just joking. So it is harder for men to kind of get over it, right? But I think when both people are mature, like I'm at a space now, and I'm just talking about myself personally. We have to really come to grips to what we think a marriage is, right? We think that we're going to get married, and from that moment on, no one would ever make another mistake.
Do it?
Yeah, people think that. Like, happily ever after. Happily ever after. That's a myth. You know what I mean? Where did that phase? Like as soon as you jump the broom, you're happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
No one else is going to make a mistake after you jump that broom. We're all human. We're all capable of missing the mark at some point in our life.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm at the point now that if infidelity happens or something else happens, am I going to actually throw away my whole experience with this person?
Yeah, I'm going to just take that as it comes. I can't even.
Well, I'm talking for me.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't see myself throwing away a whole experience. I have a wife, 3 kids, and the foundation that I built. And just because somebody made a mistake, I'm gonna throw away the whole experience.
I feel the same way, but
I'm
I
like,
also
I'm just not. To me, that makes no sense. Because then you're gonna go out and search for something that you probably won't ever find again. You're looking for perfection, and no one is perfect. And I think a lot of us are out here looking for perfection and not realizing that nobody's perfect.
I also feel like it also depends on what emotional space you're in when that type of trauma happens. Because I think if you're in a very settled place emotionally and you're good, then you can recover better from that trauma. If your relationship was in a good space for a good, maybe a good period of time, you know, I think it that you can better recover. But I feel like if you're in a space where you're unhappy within yourself and your spouse cheats on you and you're already in an insecure or emotionally unstable place, then your response or the trauma from that act may be more damaging. So I feel like I share that sentiment that I'm in a space where I wouldn't just throw my whole marriage down the drain. And me and my best friend talked about this before. Like when I think about the idea of getting a divorce, and then I think about where I am, I'm like, I've given this person 15 years of my life, 3 children, all of my youth, love, support, sleepless nights, tears, fears, all that stuff. It You think I'm gonna just throw that away for you to go get some other woman a few years down the line that's gonna get to enjoy all the work I put into you because you weren't a whole person before I got you? I mean, think about it. We got married young. You know what I'm saying? We had a lot of growth. We've grown up together. So I had to deal with all the baggage. Yeah, I had to deal with all this stuff, and then you about to come in and enjoy this and then that. Oh hell no! Like we gonna work this out, and we gonna be happy.
Or else.
Or else death do us part.
I'm scared.
Okay, so
I'm scared.
anywho, getting back to focusing on a marriage mindset, it kind of brings me to those type of conversations and questions you need to have prior to getting married. Like Lamar brought up some really good points, but I think there are other things that need to be explored, like sexual expectations. I think those are sexual expectations. Like you hear people say, or make jokes about them not being on the same page sexually. Oh, my wife don't ever give me none. I probably give her some once a month, or all this stuff. Whereas you might have had a healthy sex life prior to getting married, and then when you get married and other things come along, though your sex life changes. And I think those are conversations that mature adults, if you are in a place where you are really strongly considering being in a marriage or a long-term relationship that you are hoping to lead to marriage, you should have these conversations. What are your sexual expectations, especially when things change, when we have kids? What do you think is the actual minimum amount of sex you can have and still be satisfied? If I'm not in a place where I can satisfy you sexually because of whatever, what other forms of intimacy do you need? Those are conversations that I think, as a couple of being married 15 years, we're still having. And so,
Yeah, because there's been times when I came home like I need something, and then there's been times where you were like, it's time. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's I'm here to please. No, no, but that's those are real conversations though. You know what I'm saying? Because for me, like my whole attitude changes when it's time for me. You know what I'm saying? And when yeah, but hold on, what you said, Stephen? A wise person once said, "Don't go into it burning up the bed if you ain't gonna maintain it."
I got that same advice, pal. I got that same advice. Don't go in there turning trick 4 or 5 times a week if a year from now you ain't gonna be able to do that. And
now, who gave y'all that bad advice?
First of all, that's great advice.
That is not good advice.
Why?
First of all, because y'all not men. That's why.
So
Obviously, you got that advice from another woman.
hold on. So are you telling me that if you went from when you first got married having sex every single day to
That's
a
what we
year?
did
Hold
before
on.
we got married.
Hold on. First of all, let me tell my business. Oh, she said it was from me. Thank you, Pat. Somebody else
She
gave
gave
me.
you some bad advice.
Your auntie gave me that advice.
Who?
We ain't gonna put that. We ain't gonna put her on them. But
Auntie. Oh no.
No, but for real, for real. If you go from doing that every single day to all of a sudden things drastically change, because when we got married, soon after we got married, I was pregnant again and I was sick as a dog. You know what I'm saying? Things change, your hormones change, your emotions change, your marriage situation change.
She told you on the bachelorette night. I'm still trying to figure out what auntie told you.
We'll talk about it later.
Problem.
But listen, you know, when you go into the relationship giving so much and being so passionate, it is a huge disappointment when that's no longer the case.
But
Don't
you
you
should
think?
give from your heart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Give from your heart. You know? And I think at the time you have to realize and just be open to being in the moment with each other. You know what I'm saying? So but at the time, just being in the moment with each other, see, like, so we can have an argument, but I don't, after the argument, I don't look at you like I just hate this person because of what we discussed. On the other hand, you do. Like, we have an argument, you have a look on your face like, I think sometimes I need to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, do I need to leave? You know what I'm saying? So I don't mind hugging you and stuff after I argue, because that's, to me, not saying that you're emotionally immature, but we just deal with it different kind of ways.
My thing is, it's like, think of it like this. I'm more like a kettle, right? Or a teapot. If you put me on and boil me, as soon as you turn the eye off, I'm not just gonna cool off. I need time to adjust back to room temperature. Lamar is not like that. He feels like as soon as you turn the eye off, it's ice cold. That's not how nature works in most situations. You know what I'm saying? It's just like get an erection. It slowly goes up and it can slowly go down. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is there are things that it takes time to get them elevated. So it also takes time to de-escalate. And so I need that time to process, because also in the heat of the moment, I am not always processing fully. So during that time of de-escalating, I'm actually processing how I feel, what was said, how does that make me feel? Are there some things that I need to be working on and working through? And so that's, again, going back to understanding when you enter into a marriage, your partner's communication style may be different. You know, now I will say that and it can change, and opposites tend to attract. Like when we were early in our marriage, one of the things that used to aggravate me and then became humorous to me is that when we would have an argument and he would want to hug and stuff, and I'd be like, get off of me. He'll be like, you scared of love. Why you scared of love? And be chasing me around the house. After a while, it did allow me to be able to de-escalate a lot quicker. But at first, it used to really frustrate me because it's just like, I need this time to evolve. He's holding my hands because I'm so dramatic. Anyway, moving on to other things. Discussing money. Money tends to be a real big deal breaker.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talked about how women a lot of times have this mindset that your money is our money and my money is my money. Well, you really should be having conversations around finances, because people who don't have conversation about finances sometimes find themselves in really sticky situations. Like I've heard of so many relationships where women have huge credit card debt that their husbands are unaware of. Like, I'm talking about 20, 30, $50,000 of debt. Sometimes your partner can have a gambling problem. Do they have good credit? Like that's a question you should talk about
And
before you get in a relationship.
let's talk about how to set these things up. Like, and some people differ on this. So when it comes to the money, after you get married, people like everything should be in one pot, right? Well, I think it's helpful for her to have her own account, for me to have an account, and then we have a joint account.
I don't do nothing in my account. My account is the joint account. But anyway.
Yeah. I don't really do nothing in my account. I can barely get a Chick-fil-A sandwich because my allowance is only $50 a month. But no, but as long as I get my Chick-fil-A. But I think that's really helpful because what it does is it allows to have for each one of you to have some individual freedoms, and then you come together and say, hey, this is what this is for the household. This is for the house. We got vacation. We got the kids stuff and the savings, right? So when you're able to do all of those things and still have your own little pockets of money on the side, I think it kind of creates a little freedom within a relationship. That's just my personal opinion.
I mean, I think that's a great suggestion, but I also think it's important to have conversations, transparent conversations about finances too. You know, I might not know how much money Lamar has spending money. I really don't care because there's trust in our relationship. But that's because we are completely aware of what each other's financial situation is, what each other's credit looks like. Now, I do believe that
I go bounce out and buy a motorcycle on that.
I do believe that it's also important that there has to be, you should share the responsibility of finances. And I don't think that also always happens when he talking about his Chick-fil-A money. If I died tomorrow, Lamar probably wouldn't know what bills were paid. So I try to keep a record every month of what I've paid, and I plan my bills out, because if I die, he won't know what's been paid, what's due. I keep certain stuff stored certain places so he can access passwords and things like that, because the reality is he focuses on solely just the business finances. He don't know what the power bill is. When he see a bill in the mail, be like, dog, why this bill that much? I'm like, the bill that much every month. So I think it's important to,
like I said, I don't see my checks. I get $50 a month.
Stop telling that lie.
I see, hey, check is gone. If I buy a Chick-fil-A from the wrong account, she be calling me like, hey, what you did? Spend $13 on a salad? I was like, baby, I only spent $13 this month. I can't even spend $13 this month.
We are not gonna pay attention to how petty he been. Anywho,
Thank God
no
for
lies
tips.
detected.
Thank God for tips, boy. If I ain't had tips, I wouldn't have no money.
That's because he chooses not to look at the money. Anywho, that's pretty much all I have. I kind of want to just recap what my suggestions are, and then read.
I do want to bring this up though. So I was listening to YouTube, and this goes back to the whole marriage thing. I know you don't agree with this, but coming together to get married, don't expect marriage to help you to make you happy, right? So this guy, he was talking specifically like from a Christian standpoint, but he said marriage is about coming together to fulfill a godly purpose. It's not really coming together to find happiness. It's like you have these two individuals that's coming together for a godly purpose.
I agree with that.
Saying having a united purpose can be the glue that keeps your marriage together. Having a united purpose can be the glue that keeps a marriage together. I wrote it down. I was like, man, that was kind of deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I think about us and I think about our kids, and I was like, man, we have some awesome children. Like, we wouldn't have not had these same awesome children if I would have had children with somebody else. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be these same awesome children.
Mm-hmm.
I think about stuff like that. You know what I mean? Even to where we are today, because our minds are different. Like your mom said, we're just so opposite of each other. Like, you needed me to calm you down. You know what I'm saying? You needed somebody like me. Mm-hmm. You should be thankful for me. You know what I mean?
I am.
I deserve more than $50 so much. But yeah, I just wanted to end off with something like that. So
Well,
that's just something to think about. What you think about that?
I think that's great. I mean, I truly believe that that statement it resonated with me. It has so much truth, and I would have to break that down on a different time of how it spoke to me. But I really agree with that because I feel like when you are on the same page with, your spouse, I feel like things move a lot smoother. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think I would kind of like to say before I kind of give a summary is about expectations. And this one was a big one for me. Is really managing your expectations of what marriage is going to look like and how life is going to be, because honestly, we can plan things, but rarely does life go exactly as we planned. Rarely. And so it's important that you can have expectations, or you can have desires or goals for your relationship, like a goal to always be passionate or always be honest, but to have an expectation that the person you're married to will always be honest. To have that expectation, they may not always meet that expectation. So even though that may be a goal and it's a great goal to work to, know that sometimes they may not meet the mark. And it's important for you to manage your expectations and be realistic about the expectations you set. Not saying that's an unrealistic expectation, but I think that's just important. And so I kind of want to wrap up, and I want you to summarize the points that you gave. But for me, I feel like, yeah, just give a quick synopsis.
They heard me.
Okay. So again, work, it's important when you are trying to develop a marriage mindset that you focus on what qualities do you have, what qualities should you be working towards. If you're impatient, try to be learning to be patient. Do your self-work, right? What skills are you going into the relationship with? Are you a good communicator? Do you know how to problem solve? What's your conflict resolution style? Have you worked on compassion and forgiveness for both yourself and other people? Also, having conversations that are centered around family and marriage goals. What are your financial goals? Retirement? How do you want to raise your children? Are you Baptist and he's Protestant? Are you Catholic and he's Muslim? These are conversations that you need to be having when you're trying to get yourself prepared for marriage.
I'm going to end with the golden key. Y'all need to write this down. Serve without expectations. Have a servant attitude. Right? Even when you feel like you're not getting anything back, serve anyway. And see what happens.
That's good teaching.
That's good teaching.
That's good teaching, Pastor. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in and keeping us entertained. And that's it for us. So until next time, live your best life.
Living through your stress life.
Hello.